So tips for managing contractors. I would say to treat a contractor or a contracting business like an employee. First of all, you want to make sure that they're a good culture fit for you and what your goals are. Like, are you going to be able to get along with them day to day? For me, the most important reason for that is, like any relationship, when things go south or get challenging, you want to have a level of trust so that you can be candid with each other to resolve conflicts, rupture, issues, problems. And it's probably not going to be like conflict or rupture, because usually things don't get that bad, but it's probably going to be conversations around performance, conversations around output. Sometimes someone will make a mistake or someone will deliver something that's not in your expectations. And so you're going to have constant conversations around expectation management, hopefully not constant, but you're going to have some conversations around expectation management and around deliverables. And when they don't go to plan, rather than just burn and churn and look for another provider, you want to be good at that skill of performance managing them back into compliance with how you want them to work. So culture fit would be number one. What are the practicals of actually managing them? Like an employee, you'd have an onboarding process. And in that onboarding process, what I would normally do is spend some time with someone, telling them about the business, about the goals of the business, about the vision, about where we're going, and about what role we want that person to take. That also gives them the opportunity to see, like, oh, are they actually capable of supporting our goals and where the business wants to go? Then giving them a bit of a lay of the land of who's on your team and who has different responsibilities. So whether you give them like an organizational chart on an email, that might help, or just a list of like key people that they'll interact with and those people's email addresses or contacts, that makes sense so they can effectively, do business with your team. That also helps them not coming to you directly, because someone needs to be responsible for managing them. And that's probably a nice segue into, how do you then manage a contractor? So we love using technology tools, but not every contractor is going to want to like enter your Asana file, for example, and start managing projects inside of in your business. They probably have their own project management system and their own delivery system for delivering to all of their clients. So don't expect them to jump into your system necessarily. And I would say probably don't demand it, although some customers do and some consultants will say yes. But you want to have some way of, agreeing on how you're going to do things. Are you going to have a weekly or a monthly meeting and just go through all the action items, and then each person keeps their own to-do list of active issues or tasks or whatever? How are you going to communicate? Is it going to be on email? Is it going to be on chat? You're going to have different communication for urgent versus not urgent things. Are they someone who works well alone? So do you do a sync session and then they go away and just work on all the things and bring them back where they're done? Or do they like to work collaboratively and want to have frequent interactions? Some people in different natures will work differently. And then, part of their management is performance management, right? So ideally, you're identifying, what does success look like? What are the KPIs? What's the expected output? And what are the results that you want to get? So what are your key results or your key outcomes that you want to get? And you're reviewing them on a semi-regular basis. So maybe that's based on quarters. Maybe it's month to month. Maybe it's annually. And so you want to set these milestones so that you've got, a way of doing a little check-in with that person. Otherwise, when you're just going task by task and you're not ever zooming out and looking at the strategy or looking at the milestones, then you can lose sight of the forest for the trees, right? You can lose sight of, okay, what are we looking to achieve here? And what's the goal? What's the return on the investment that we want to make with engaging this contractor? And this could be web designer. It could be your accountant. It could be IT support contractor. It could be your lawyer. I'm thinking of people that a small business will typically outsource to. Media agency is another really popular one. So yeah, I hope that helps. Now, if things don't go well and you need to offboard the supplier, same kind of thing. Offboarding process, removing access to technology tools, hopefully getting some feedback about them, about, hey, like what didn't work about this engagement or what wasn't aligned about this engagement. Ideally, having those conversations before things don't work out. But yes, sure, sometimes things don't work out. Sometimes some providers will work with you and be well suited for you at a certain stage, but then you grow or you change or the business strategy changes, or that person or consultant or contractor has just served their time and it's time for fresh energy, or it's time for someone with a different skill set based on the level of business that you're at. And that's okay as well. So, some relationships can finish very amicably and just move on to the next one. And some of them may even involve a handover from one to the other. But yeah, in summary, treating this like an employee, and that means having those checks in place and a management plan in place could yield fruitful relationships with contractors. And the last thing I forgot to mention at the start is when you're recruiting, you want to have a recruiting process like you would recruit employees. You want to vet them. You probably want to speak to a few different people and get a vibe of different people's skills and different people's capabilities, and just, to kind of feel out with your gut if they're a fit or not. But a list of questions or criteria would be a good idea for your, call it, vendor selection process, right? And that might be, how many 5-star Google reviews do they have? How many years experience do they have? What certifications do they have? Have you checked that they have insurance? I mean, you probably don't need to these days, but you could ask to speak to a couple of customers or at least see some case studies. Ask them, have you delivered similar projects in the past? Can you tell us about some similar customers that you've taken through a similar process and got success with? All of those things, should be ticked off before you jump into engaging someone just off the back of a smooth sales conversation or a fancy proposal. Okay, good luck.